we were locking in ventures with Fortune 500 companies like Procter and Gamble, one of the biggest global companies, hygiene companies in the world. And we were locking in opportunities with those companies, and I still felt like I'm still that black girl from working poor, shouldn't be here. Um, this isn't for me. You know what I'm saying? Like this wasn't for me. And so I had to figure out how to overcome that. Like even some and I think it happens a lot to a lot of entrepreneurs. It's like when the best seasons are happening, there's something else going on.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley in partnership with Leumitech, sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest Labs, Synergy Global, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, Birthright Excel, Serona Partners, and in media partnership with CTech. Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Meet Renika Smiley, founder and CEO of Generation Now. Founder Renika J. Smiley first launched Generation Now as a LinkedIn networking happy hour event hosted at local bars. Her first events featured a diverse speaking panel and began with an audience of 40 to 75 young professionals in Igby's private second floor. Fortune 500 corporate offices soon replaced Igby's when attendance grew to more than 200. Renika J. Smiley, thank you so much for joining me all the way from Cincinnati, Ohio. How are you today?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak about leadership.
Thank you very, very much, Renika. Generation Now. I think that there's such an interesting story that I got to look into before we did this episode together, and I did compliment you that I think your last name is one of the best last names I've ever seen, and so great on that. But tell me a little bit about Generation Now and how all of that started.
Okay, so Generation Now. Well, I'm from Cincinnati, but I left Cincinnati
Mhm.
for a little while. I did a lot of traveling. I went to a couple of different places. I wound it up in Chicago, Illinois, and Atlanta, Georgia for a little while. When you're in a new city, the only way you can really get to know the city is if you Google, find out what events is going on. And so in Chicago and Atlanta, there's a lot of young professional events. There's a lot of networking going on. It's thriving energy in those bigger cities. And so I ended up coming back home to Cincinnati after being a go getter market, and I'm already a go getter. And I seen that there was still a big need for that for young professionals in Cincinnati, and especially inclusion. In Chicago and Atlanta, I can be in a place with people from different backgrounds, different races, different sexualities. You can bump somebody by accident. They're like, okay, that's fine. Sorry. In Cincinnati, if you bump somebody, they're like, oh, you know what I'm saying? Because they're not used to being in a diverse and inclusive environment. And so I started Generation Now with a few of my friends. They actually just came back to Cincinnati too. We started out hosting an event, just like a happy hour networking event, and we had a panel inside
Yeah.
of the bar where we had like corporate senior level speakers speaking. And we end up growing from that to hosting events at corporation offices and actually developing cohort programs. And now we're a membership based organization
Tell me a
today.
little bit about the first events that you've hosted. What were they like? What did you learn from the very first few events that you were doing? What surprised you? What was that experience like for you?
So that experience, the first few events that we hosted, what I learned is that we were just doing like the first program we launched were just like monthly networking events. What I learned in those first few events is that a lot of young professionals, when they would ask the panelists questions, they were just questions about soft skills training. A lot of the question that young professionals asked was really about just how do they become more professional? How do they manage conflict? And so
Mhm.
what I had seen in those first few events is that young professionals need more cohort programs for professional development training that would help them understand. What I seen in the first few months, which landed us sponsorships with big corporation, Fortune 500 companies in Cincinnati, is that there was a lack of diversity inclusion. The young professionals loved our events because you can come to our events no matter your background, no matter where you came from, and you can feel comfortable and you can network with new people. And it was really good for people coming from even bigger city markets or actually young professionals who were new to the city. It was easier way for them to get connected in the community.
And so, was that surprising to you, or was that the thesis that you had from the get go about Generation Now and about what this generation needs?
Yeah, well, one of my skills is a knack for problem solving. So I actually can pick out problems and actually solve them. And so I seen that that was a big, huge solution in Cincinnati that was needed. Not just in Cincinnati, it's needed in other markets, just to kind of help young professionals grow, especially now since we're in a workforce where we have the great resignation. We have
Yep.
a lack of people actually working now. We have more people
Right.
actually wanting to start businesses, and so it's kind of it's growing the economy, but it's hurting the economy at the same time because if everyone's an entrepreneur, then we won't have any employees.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, tell me a little bit about the scale that you've used here. So how did you what was the process like for you to scale, to start getting those sponsorships, to start working with those corporations, and what did you learn from that experience of scaling?
Absolutely. So for scaling, being that this was my second business and I actually came from like working poor, first business was as a nightlife club
Right.
promoter. It took me a little longer to kind of transition and learn how to kind of manage and grow a non for profit. And so, how we scaled the non for profit, we actually just decided to just continue to host events, have networking events, and actually do soft skill training workshops for young professionals just to kind of keep them engaged. And the actual corporations began to like sponsor our events to continue keeping the events going. And so, what I ended up learning in that time when we were hosting the events is that that's a really hard way to kind of grow an organization. It's a hustle because you're hustling from events to events to events to events to events to kind of pay the budget and keep the organization going. So we had to pivot and really transition the business model into more of a workforce development membership based business model, which helps us out a lot because there is other young professional kind of membership based organizations across the country in the United States that's similar to Generation Now. But what makes Generation Now different is that we also have a workforce development proportion of it, which we're not only just training young professionals in corporate organizations, we're actually contracting, partnering with school systems, partnering with human service organizations to train their actual young professionals that go through their programs who are trying to come, make it out of poverty, make it out of working poor. And so a lot of the issues with human services organizations, they're great organizations, but they have like a branding and a stigma that once you go through a human service organization, uh, the highest they can get you is probably a job being a bagger at Kroger's or at a grocery store. Generation Now, we have the brand that is for young professionals who are thriving and trying to get to the next level within their career. And so the brand of Generation Now helps even the working class or the lower middle class young professionals who want to actually develop. So now how we have scaled today is pivot into a membership based organization where the corporations pay for memberships for their young professional employees. You can pay for individual memberships. Of course, with the coronavirus, everything is digital. If you don't have a digital component, it's going to kind of slow you down. And so we are creating
Right.
now an application for Generation Now, the digital component, where once our members log in and you pay a membership, you can take courses, you can visit our job board, you're welcome to come to workshops where you can meet employers who will run information workshops to let you know about job opportunities that are available. And then you can network with people on the website. Like we have the kind of like the Facebook, the news feeds where you can kind of accept friends, meet people, and you can actually connect with people for like coaching or projects that you need or mentorship.
If you're looking back and reflecting on, the trajectory of Generation Now and what's happened there, and how you grew and expanded from events to a community to now offering these digital services and a digital community, a virtual community that is here to empower this generation in a much more impactful way even than a lot of other organizations do. What were sort of, can you pinpoint some aha moments that you've had along the journey where you or your team members, just something happened and you knew that there is a potential here, you knew that something big can come out of this if you just continue and push forward?
hmm the aha moment that I had was actually about our digital component. It was actually an idea that we had in mind about 2, 3 years ago. And that idea was with my friend. He actually is a alumni for the 30 under 30 Forbes list. He's the founder of tech company Wiser, and so
Mhm.
he went through the Brandery Accelerator program in Cincinnati. And I remember when I was talking to BK Simmons, he was like, "Hey, you should probably create a digital component to what you're doing with Generation Now." And that was probably about like 3 years ago. And I was like, "Yeah, I think I could." And I actually spoke to BK a couple of days ago because I'm like, I need some help here. I need you to help me. You started and scaled your technology business to like $5-10 million. I need you to help me with some of the stuff that we're doing because we're getting ready to pitch for a few different capital opportunities to really expand a digital component. So I think that was probably the best aha moment, and it just was perfect timing with Cove, with a lot of jobs are now
Yeah.
remote. So now it's harder to connect with people. So we had to create something digitally to still connect with people.
What was the most challenging piece of it all until now? If you're looking at the whole journey, what is the most challenging thing that you had to overcome or are still overcoming as an entrepreneur?
Um, I think still overcoming as an entrepreneur, imposter syndrome, um, and bootstrapping, coming from an environment where you don't have a lot of people you can call for help, and you have to kind of figure it out financially or figure out funding yourself. Um, I believe the most challenging piece was non for profit. In Cincinnati, it has got better in the last 2, 3 years, but Cincinnati lacks a huge resources for non for profits. So that was kind of one of the hindrance that we had with Generation Now, and a lot of non-for-profit organizations in Cincinnati. If you want to get a non-for-profit started, it was really hard. It wasn't a lot of resources available. But thankfully, for local organizations such as Leadership Council for Non-for-Profits, One Source, and even um, what's the other one? Social Venture Partners, who's actually pivot their models to help give more support to actually non for profits. It has really helped us out a lot.
Tell me a little bit about the imposter syndrome that you mentioned before, because I think that is something that every entrepreneur has. I know every entrepreneur has, and I think it's something that, is something that is always difficult to understand, difficult, especially for somebody who's not going through the entrepreneurial experience. But I think that is something that is so important to sort of understand and to say, okay, yes, we know we have it, but that's okay. We can still move forward with it. We can learn with it, and we can grow into it. What was that like for you, or still is like for you?
Um, Imposter syndrome now for me, it's still about feeling like, do am I making the right choice, am I making the right decision, am I really hearing from the Lord, because I am a woman I'm a woman of faith, so I follow God. And so I feel like he gives us the plan of what to do, and so I'm like, that's why I reach out to, like, okay, am I doing the right thing? I know before, it was a lot of anxiety. I used to have panic attacks. Even in the beginning, when I was like, we were locking in ventures with Fortune 500 companies like Procter and Gamble, one of the biggest global companies, hygiene companies in the world, and we were locking in opportunities with those companies, and I still felt like I'm still that black girl from working poor, shouldn't be here. um this isn't for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, this wasn't for me. And so I had to figure out how to overcome that. Like, even some, and I think it happens a lot to a lot of entrepreneurs. It's like when the best seasons are happening, there's something else going on. But I know what has helped me out is psychology, understanding a lot. Like, I just recently was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. I didn't know that I had depression and anxiety. And
Wow.
now that I have been actually learning how to deal with those challenges that I had just became aware of, um, now I understand, okay, a lot of the things that I was thinking was more of less of insecurity, because I'm thinking, oh, this is insecurity. Like, oh, this is, maybe I have low self-esteem. That's the imposter syndrome, when a lot of it was just anxiety. And so
Wow.
and that's what I'm going to school for now, is psychology too. So I learned a lot of our decision making, a lot of the challenges that we have, is really getting to the nitty gritty of those issues, and finding a way to unconditionally love ourselves no matter what we're going through. And so I think that's the most coolest opportunity yet you can find, to be able to be the best version of yourself, to perform with your business, is really getting to the nitty gritty of the personal issues that's bothering you. This is all the motivational videos that you see on YouTube, all education, all the self-help books. That's all they're doing, is helping you become a better version of yourself. So those distractions, or the blind sides that you're having, they won't bother you so much. So it's a lot of soul
Yeah.
searching that you have to do, and a lot of it that I found out is really just courage.
If you were to go back in time and give yourself one tip from your experience, what would that tip be?
One tip from my experience, that if I had to go back and talk to Renika, I would tell Renika, it's gonna be okay. Like, you're gonna get there. Enjoy life. Don't run yourself to the ground. Enjoy the moments. Enjoy every single moment. It's all great moments. That was one of the hugest issues I had with depression, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs go through, is with being antisocial, uh, working so much, that you work so much alone that you can isolate yourself. And that's kind of what happened to me as a young professional. Things were falling apart a few years ago, but I can't believe I still was like, it was like the roof, the water's coming out of the roof, and the sky's falling on you, and you're just holding it up like, it doesn't matter how bad this thing gets, I'm gonna just keep holding my hands up like this. That's how I felt at the time. But I ended up having a mental breakdown moment, and I had to really get myself back together and have to understand that balance, and I'm a Libra too. But balance is really important to really balance your life out and just enjoy those moments. Because the isolation, being an entrepreneur, even being a CEO or a leader of a company, it can really take a toll on you. So I
Uh,
think that's what I would go
Renika,
back
I
and tell Renika.
wanna
It's going to be.
I want to thank you. You know, we came into this conversation talking about Generation Now. We're leaving it with what I think is the epitome of leadership, which is being able to share, you know, honestly and authentically these experiences that are common to so many people, and it's so uncommon to hear about them in an authentic and honest way. And I really want to thank you for being vulnerable here and for opening yourself up and for willing to share with me and with anybody who's listening, you know, a glimpse of the struggles that also happen, but more importantly, you know, the looking back and saying, okay, it's okay. You know, we can enjoy the moments. It's all about one big journey. Let's love the moments, and if we truly enjoy them and harness them, that'll be the best thing that will propel us forward. So Renika, thank you very, very much. Again, love your last name. I wish I had a last name like
Yeah,
Smiley. I think it's fantastic, and
yeah,
leaving on an optimistic note, and best of luck with Generation Now. Thank you for all the amazing work that you're doing, and stay safe and stay healthy.
absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to be a feature on 20 minutes. So I'm super excited to see where this opportunity takes you with how you expand it. So I enjoyed watching the previous clips of
Thank
other
you.
shows of 20 leaders, and I'm like, okay, this is a really cool thing.
Thank you
It's a
very,
really
very
cool
much. I appreciate that
podcast.
a lot. Thank you, Renika.
No
Bye
problem.
bye.
I know
Take
you're going to
care.
go far with that.